Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. This is just a quick shout out and thank you to my good friend Steve, who sent me these 4 knives after he saw my YouTube channel. I've known Steve for a couple of years now, way back. I think I first met him on iKnife Collector. He's also on a couple of Facebook pages, Knife Works and American Knife Collectors Club. And he's also on WordPress on his blog called Steve Knives. If you haven't checked out Steve Knives, I strongly suggest you do. Lots of good reviews, lots of great information about knives on Steve Knives. And I just wanted to say thank you to him and show off the 4 knives that he sent me. Starting on the left here, we have the Imperial Diamond Edge number 555 or DE555, and then next to that we have the Victorinox 111 millimeter Picnicker, and then we have the Victorinox Sentry in the Boy Scouts of America, and then finally all the way to the right we have a Wenger 101003 or Commander. And well, let's take a look at these knives that Steve sent me. So the DE555 here is one of the Imperials that was made in Ireland. I think this is from the 1970s or so. This same pattern was also made in the United States before that. And it's also the pattern that was used for the Matterhorn series. So you got the nice Spearmaster blade here. And then the punch up here in the front with the angle there, so to give it a little bit of strength. And it's really not a bad punch or anything. Probably the weakest part of this whole knife is the corkscrew on the back, but it will work. As you see, it does move beyond, which is typical of corkscrews actually, and it actually helps when you're pulling out the corks and such. So that's really not a fault of the knife. It is actually part of the design. And then the other 2 tools that you have on there are a short screwdriver cap lifter and your typical can opener, the safety can opener, and then you have the pack of wood handles on there, and then the DE shield. It's kind of like gold stamped into that. Obviously it's not real gold, but still not in bad shape either. This is one of the lesser or economy type knives. As you can tell, the bail can actually be easily popped out. So if you're a person who doesn't like bails, you can actually remove it fairly easily. But that's the DE. Not a bad little knife. I think they sold for around $10 or so when they first came out, and you can usually pop them online for somewhere between $15 and $20 in this shape. And this is not in bad shape at all, as you can see. Has been used slightly, but not much. And I'm guessing maybe Steve used it. I'm not sure. But in any case, really not a bad little knife. Next up is the Victorinox 111 millimeter Picnicker. This is the closest thing to a Spartan in the 111 millimeter line, and what you have here is one of the early ones that has a slide lock. What was interesting is it also came with the little screwdriver for the eyeglasses, and if you notice here, it's got a fluted corkscrew, which is kind of interesting because the 111 millimeter knives are kind of new in the Victorinox line, and this is one of the older screwdrivers, and so this makes it one of the older 111 millimeter Picnickers, even for the slide locks. The Victorinox eventually issued this with a liner lock, and it was a Nomad, and then they discontinued the slide lock version, and the Picnicker became the Nomad, so the Nomad name disappeared, and it became the Picnicker. So now these are only available as a liner lock. And what you got is the nice big long blade on it, and a lot of people don't like the slide locks. I love the slide locks. It's just out of the way, and it's kind of different than what you see on most knives. And contrary to popular belief, they work really well. And you see the Victorinox Switzerland stainless, and then underneath, if we can see it there, Rostfrei. And on the back side, you see pack pending Mod Depart. So, or Mod Dep. And then the earlier smaller can openers, and your typical cap lifter. And I'm sorry, this is the can opener with the smaller screwdriver, and the other thing was the cap lifter screwdriver, but it does lock halfway. And also it has the awl here. As you can tell, it's a little bit damaged. I was thinking about sending this back to Victorinox to have it replaced, but I was afraid it would just lose a lot of provenance with that, because they might end up changing out the corkscrew and everything else. So what I will probably do, though, because these scales are kind of worn down, is I might get some replacement scales for this so it'll look a little bit newer. But talk about a really interesting Picnicker between the fluted screwdriver and the slide lock and everything, and the markings on the tang. It just makes it a really interesting knife for my collection. And I don't have a whole lot of 111 millimeter knives, so this one's going to be really happy for me. Next up is the Sentry, and this one's in really good shape. Yeah, there's a little dinged up there, but really not bad at all. And the Boy Scout emblem comes in really clear. You know, the tenderfoot symbol there. And you got the Victorinox shield up here. The Sentry is an 84 millimeter knife with just one blade. It's similar to the Pocket Pal. As you can see here, there's a little nick on this blade, no big deal. First Sentry I got, and I'm really kind of happy with it, especially with the Boy Scout shield, because I do also collect Boy Scout knives. And we see here with the Tang stamp. You know, this typical one we just saw a minute ago. And on the back side, nothing, which is typical of the Sentries and such. But yeah, just a nice little pen knife, about 3 1/4 inches long. Really like it though, and it's a nice collection for my Boy Scout knives. Okay, and finally, let's take a look at this little Wenger over here. Knife number 4, and probably my favorite of the group. This is one from the 1970s or so, early 1970s, as you can tell by this bail on the back here, and also the fluted 4-turn corkscrew, and you also have a punch on the back that hasn't changed a whole lot with Wenger. And then you see here the toothpick and tweezers. I'm not going to pull them out because it's always a pain to get them back in, especially when you're trying to film. That makes this knife a 10-10-03 or a Commander. I'm not sure when they started calling them Commanders though. And if we see here with the blade, it's a nice clean blade. I don't think it's ever used. Yeah, it's got a few scratches on that, but it looks like shelf wear more than anything. And here we see the Wenger Tang stamp with the crossbow. Backside is blank. That might help me in dating it later. But Wenger, Delamont, Switzerland, and I think underneath that it's, well, I can't read it. It's probably stainless. And then the other part that makes this a Commander or a 10-10-03 is this really nice nail file. I like the knives with the nail file, and this one is one of the older ones with the cross cut. And if you notice here, there's a little bit of a swedge there, getting this with a really nice point, so you can really definitely use it to clean out your nails and stuff. And then otherwise, you have on the front tools your cap lifter screwdriver, and the last part of it is the old-fashioned dog leg can opener with the pat pending. All of this is going to help me eventually date this knife, and then I'll probably have to do another video on just this knife alone so I can talk more about it. And by then, hopefully, I'll know how to use this can opener. I just always thought they looked really cool. I know a lot of people like to use them for opening boxes and stuff, and it's probably the safest thing to do with them, but definitely want to try and figure out how to use it to open up a can. So that'll be fun. In any case, definitely a really excellent example of a 10-1003. The knife is probably at least 40 years old, probably even more than that, and it's in just almost perfect shape. I mean, it's just got a little bit of shelf wear going on with it. So it's hard not to say thanks again to Steve simply for this knife alone, but I also got these 3 other knives with it, you know, a Sentry, a Picnicker, and a DE555. I mean, how can you not say thanks to a friend who gives you 4 knives? So thanks again, Steve, and a big shout out to you and your blog over there on WordPress for the name Steve Knives. I'll definitely put a link in there for you, so hopefully you can get some traffic going that way for you. If you haven't been to Steve's Knives, you really should check it out, because he's got a lot of really good information on knives over there, especially new knives with knife reviews and everything else. Again, thanks for watching this, and again, thank you, Steve. As always, thanks for dropping by, and remember, you're only as sharp as your knife.